Have you ever woken up with a heavy heart, feeling lost in the rushing current of life even before your feet touch the ground? In that hazy moment between sleep and reality, the alarm doesn't sound like an invitation to morning motivation, but like a sentence announcing the start of yet another meaningless, repetitive day. We often just lie there, wrestling with procrastination, searching for a reason big enough to leave the warmth of the bed, but all we seem to find is pressure and exhaustion. Imagine a mint as steady as a fortress, where none of life's storms can break through, and every morning begins not in a frantic rush, but with a stoic morning routine rooted in intentional living. Nearly 2 millennia ago, the most powerful man in the world faced the same inner battle you do every single morning. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, had to remind himself in his private journal just to reclaim his self-discipline and sense of purpose. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do?'" That haunting question is not just the self-reflection of a king. It is also a key that can unlock the door to your own Ikigai. Does there exist a secret formula that can turn our laziness into resilience and transform vague anxieties into a vivid journey of purposeful living? The answer lies in how you design the very first moments of your day. That is the moment when the 1,000-year wisdom of Stoic philosophy steps in to illuminate the darkest corners of the human mind. We often mistakenly believe that happiness is the result of perfect external conditions, a high-paying job, a luxurious house, or the admiration of others. However, the ancient Stoics discovered early on a brutal yet liberating truth. The happiness of your life depends entirely on the quality of your thought. In a modern world full of turbulence, where the chaos of the news and social pressure can easily drown anyone, the ability to control your mind and preserve inner peace is no longer a luxury. It is an essential survival skill. But the resilience of a rock alone is not enough. To truly live, not just exist, we need a guiding flame, a reason for our heart to beat faster every time the sun rises. This is where the Japanese concept of Ikigai becomes the perfect missing piece in the bigger picture of a life worth living. Ikigai is not just an abstract term. It is the sacred intersection between what you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what can bring you income. It is your reason for being, the answer to why you woke up this morning instead of staying asleep. If Stoicism gives you a solid shield to endure adversity, then Ikigai places in your hand a sharp sword to carve your way toward purposeful living. Today, we're not going to stop at discussing dry philosophical theories on old pages. Together, we will build a practical strategy that combines the calm of the West with the depth of meaning from the East to reconstruct your daily habits. We will explore how even the smallest actions in the morning can create a domino effect that completely transforms the way you think, work, and love. From practicing negative visualization to truly appreciate the present, To uncovering your Ikigai through a process of self-discovery, this video will give you a detailed roadmap to escape a state of passive reaction and step into an era of intentional living. In the next few minutes, we will dive deep into the core principles that help you cultivate an inner life so steady that it remains unshaken by external circumstances. You will learn how to build a morning routine that not only wakes you up, but also nourishes your soul, helping you face each new day with clarity and profound gratitude. This is not a rigid to-do list. It is an invitation for you to step into the journey of mastering your own destiny. To truly grasp the weight of the principles we're about to explore, we need to travel back in time to the 2nd century AD, to the cold and unforgiving northern frontiers of the Roman Empire. There, we meet Marcus Aurelius, not only one of the greatest of the 5 good emperors, but also the living embodiment of Stoicism. His life was not a painting of indulgence and luxury within palace walls. Instead, he spent much of his reign in military camps, facing the devastation of the Antonine Plague, betrayal from those closest to him, and the immense burden of ruling an empire in decline. It was in this atmosphere of chaos and profound solitude that Marcus Aurelius turned to Stoic philosophy, not as an intellectual hobby, but as a lifeline for his soul. His classic work, Meditations, was never intended to be published for future generations. It was a private journal where he wrote to himself, training his own mind to remain clear and virtuous in a world gone mad. In these pages, he reminded himself of the power of thought, of accepting what cannot be changed, and of focusing all his energy on personal character. One of the foundational ideas he left behind, and a guiding star of Stoicism, is this: the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. However, to build a truly fulfilling life in today's world, the resilience and endurance of the West alone are not enough. We need a flame, a reason to wake up with a smile every morning. That is why we must turn our gaze to the east, to the Japanese islands of Okinawa, where the concept of Ikigai was born. In Japanese culture, Ikigai is not merely the purpose of life in the shallow sense often understood in the West. It comes from 2 words, ik, life, and gai, value or meaning. It is the crystallization of a culture that honors harmony, steady contribution, and the joy found in the smallest of things. The people of Okinawa, one of the world's blue zones, with exceptionally high longevity, do not look for Ikigai in fame or vast wealth. They find it in the subtle intersection of what they love, what they are good at, what the world needs, and what can provide an income. If Stoicism gives us a solid suit of armor to protect our inner world from the storms, then Ikigai is the compass that keeps us from getting lost in the vast ocean of choices. The combination of the disciplined mindset of a Roman emperor and the deeply meaningful life philosophy of the Japanese creates a self-development system more powerful than anything we've seen before. In this video, we will not separate them. We will unite the comb of Stoic philosophy with the fiery passion of Ikigai to create a way of living that is not only resilient, but also profoundly inspiring. The first and most important principle we must carve into our minds on this journey is the foundational idea of Stoicism, the absolute power of controlling the mind. Before we talk about waking up early, about how to make your bed, or about any productivity technique at all, we have to address the root problem buried deep in our perception. Many of us carry a dangerous misunderstanding of Stoic philosophy. We often picture a Stoic as a stone statue, emotionless, suppressing every feeling and being indifferent to the world. But the reality is the complete opposite. Stoicism is not the elimination of emotion. It is the art of taming emotion in order to achieve inner freedom. The core definition we need to grasp here originates from the dichotomy of control. Life is divided into two distinct parts: the things we can control and the things we cannot. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control traffic conditions. You cannot control the global economy. And you certainly cannot control the thoughts or attitudes of other people toward you. If you place your happiness in these variables, you are signing your own sentence to perpetual anxiety and disappointment. On the other hand, what you do have absolute power over are your judgments, your actions, and most importantly, your reactions to every event. Marcus Aurelius distilled this truth into a powerful statement that anyone seeking resilience must remember: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Why is this distinction so crucial in the modern context? Because we are living in an age of distraction and agitation. Every morning, the moment we open our eyes, our minds are bombarded by thousands of external stimuli: an urgent email, a negative news headline on social media, or simply the noise from the street. Without the mindset of Stoicism, your mind becomes like a small, unmanned boat in a violent storm, tossed in any direction the waves of circumstance command. You become a victim of your environment instead of the author of your destiny. This principle teaches us that suffering does not come from events themselves, but from our judgment of those events. Reflect deeply on this. Rain falling on the day you planned a picnic is not inherently bad. It is simply a meteorological phenomenon. The frustration and anger appear only when you label that rain as terrible and resist reality. When you develop the self-discipline to change your perspective, you completely transform your experience of life. This is where the concept of the inner citadel is formed. Stoic thought helps you build a mental space that cannot be breached. Inside that fortress, you have the power to choose your attitude. When the outer world is chaotic, the inside of the fortress remains calm. When work pressure mounts, the fortress stands firm. Practicing Stoic philosophy is the process of reinforcing each brick of this fortress day after day. It requires us to constantly observe our stream of thoughts, to recognize impulsive reactions and gently guide them back to balance. Moreover, this way of thinking is the foundation of a life of purposeful living. When you stop wasting energy complaining about things beyond your control, you free up a massive reserve of energy to focus on what you can change. You begin to live more intentionally. Instead of worrying, will my boss like this report? Something you cannot control. You pour all your effort into, how can I make this report the best it can possibly be? something you do control. This shift in focus not only brings peace, but also increases your effectiveness in a remarkable way. Resilience is not the ability to endure life's blows without collapsing. It is the ability to redefine pain and turn it into fuel for growth. A person who practices Stoicism sees in every obstacle an opportunity to cultivate virtue. A traffic jam becomes a chance to train patience. Failure becomes a chance to train humility and perseverance. By changing the quality of your thoughts, as Marcus Aurelius taught, you change the quality of your life. In the modern world, where we are constantly taught that happiness comes from consuming, owning, and achieving status, this philosophy is like a bucket of cold water that wakes us up. It reminds us that true happiness is self-sufficient. It does not depend on how many likes you have on Instagram or how many zeros you have in your bank account. It depends on whether you can preserve your calm and your dignity in the face of all upheaval. That is the state the Greeks called ataraxia, a tranquility that nothing can shake. In summary, the first core principle of mastering your mornings and your life does not lie in technique, but in mindset. It is about drawing a clear boundary between what is mine and what is not mine. It is about understanding that the world can take away your possessions, your reputation, and even your health. But no one can take away your freedom to choose your attitude unless you allow them to. When you begin your day with this mindset, you no longer wake up just to cope with life. You wake up to experience it and to master it. This is the first and most important step toward a deeply meaningful life of intentional living. Let's step out of the pages of philosophy books and into a typical Monday morning in any major American city. Picture this. You wake up 15 minutes late because you stayed up too late scrolling through social media. In a rush, you slam your leg painfully into the corner of the table, and as you try to quickly pour yourself a cup of coffee to feel a bit more awake, you spill it all over the freshly ironed white shirt you just prepared. Right after that, you pick up your phone, and the first thing you see is an urgent email from your boss, written in a less than pleasant tone. By the natural reflex of most of us, this chain of events is the perfect formula for a bad day. Anger flares up. You start blaming yourself for being clumsy, cursing the table, and feeling that your boss is being unfair. Your heart races, your cortisol spikes. You rush out of the house in a foul mood, and when you hit traffic on the highway, you slam your hand on the steering wheel in frustration. Your entire day has been ruined by 7 a.m. Why? Not because of the spilled coffee or the traffic jam, but because you handed over the control of your happiness to those random events. You are playing the role of a victim of circumstances. Now, rewind that scene and apply the mindset of Stoic philosophy combined with stillness. It's the same situation. The coffee spills. But someone who practices a Stoic morning routine will react in a completely different way. As the stain spreads across the shirt, instead of screaming, "Why me?" they pause in a brief moment of mindfulness. They immediately recognize the boundary of control. The coffee has already spilled. That's the past. An objective reality that cannot be changed. But whether I let this ruin my mood and my productivity for the rest of the day, that is my choice. My character is not. They take a deep breath and calmly change into another shirt. No yelling, no self-torment. They see this small mishap as a surprise quiz from the universe testing their resilience. Instead of seeing the gridlocked cars ahead as an obstacle blocking their life, they see it as a valuable pocket of still time to listen to a podcast about morning motivation or to practice gratitude. They have transformed a disaster into an opportunity to train self-discipline. This is the power of mastering the quality of your thoughts. To illustrate this even more deeply, imagine a seasoned pilot flying through a storm. The pilot cannot command the lightning to stop striking, nor can he order the wind to stop blowing. If he spends his energy being angry at the storm, he will die. Instead, he focuses all his attention on what lies within the cockpit: altitude, speed, and the controls. The storm is the external. His piloting skill is the internal. Your life is that flight, and every morning is another takeoff. Stoic philosophy teaches you to become that calm pilot who stays focused on the controls no matter how violent the weather outside the window may be. We can find the same pattern in the story of Thomas Edison. When his factory caught fire in 1914, destroying his life's work and causing millions of dollars in damage equivalent to tens of millions today, Edison's reaction was not to collapse in despair. He woke his son and said, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." The next morning, standing in front of the ashes, he declared, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." That is the pinnacle of intentional living. Edison did not choose the fire, but he chose how to face it, not as a tragedy, but as a new beginning. Bringing this back to our modern lives, building daily habits on this principle helps you create a psychological filter. Before you check your email or scroll the news, you preset this mental frame for your brain. When you discover your Ikigai, your reason to wake up every morning, then petty annoyances like traffic, negative comments on social media, or a broken device no longer carry enough weight to drag you down. You understand that your mission is far bigger than those inconveniences. A more relatable example, think about wake up early. When the alarm rings at 5 a.m., your body, the external physiological part, screams to keep sleeping. That discomfort is natural, but your will, the internal controllable part, has the power to decide. An ordinary person will compromise with sleepiness and hit snooze for another 10 minutes, starting the day with a small failure to keep a promise to themselves. Someone pursuing purposeful living will acknowledge the drowsiness, accept the discomfort, and still step out of bed. They don't do it because they don't feel sleepy. They do it because they respect their commitment more than temporary comfort. Every time you win against the snooze button, you're dropping a coin into a piggy bank called inner strength. So, this principle is not abstract theory. It shows up in every second, every tiny decision of your morning, from choosing to smile at a grumpy waiter to choosing to stay calm when your child is crying right before school. It is the art of living that Marcus Aurelius practiced on the battlefield. And it is the same art you can apply right now in your own kitchen. Next, we come to the second principle. a peace that determines the success or failure of any Stoic morning routine. Defining your purpose in life through Ikigai, and fiercely protecting deep stillness in the first hours of the day. If the first principle of Stoicism helps you build a mind that cannot be harmed, then this second principle answers the question, what are you using that inner strength for? A ship that does not fear storms is a good thing, but if it does not know which harbor it wants to reach, then every wind becomes a headwind. Ikigai, a subtle concept from Japan, is often misunderstood as the dream job or burning passion. In reality, it is far deeper and quieter than that. Ikigai is the sacred intersection where your personal values meet the needs of the world. It does not have to be about changing the world or becoming a billionaire. It can simply be the joy of tending a garden, the careful attention in brewing a perfect cup of tea, or the sense of fulfillment that comes from doing your professional work well. For someone who practices purposeful living, Ikigai is the slow-burning but enduring fuel that helps them wake up early willingly, without needing a blaring alarm. However, the tragedy of modern humans is that we are losing the ability to connect with our Ikigai. Why? Because we allow the noise of the world to invade our minds far too early. The moment we open our eyes, the automatic reflex of billions of people is to grab their phone. This is an act of spiritual suicide for anyone who wants to build intentional living. When you check email, scroll to social media, or read the news right after waking up, you're putting your brain into a reactive state instead of a creative one. You're allowing other people's agendas, the anxieties of the world, and cheap hits of dopamine to shape your emotions before you've even had your first sip of water. The core principle here is this. To discover your Ikigai, you need the spaciousness of chance. And to have that silence, you need the self-discipline to say no to technology in the morning and commit to wake up early. Let's dig deeper into this connection. Why did both Stoic philosophers and meditation masters place such importance on early mornings? Because that is the time when the world has not yet fully awakened to demand anything from you. It is the moment when the veil between the conscious and the subconscious is thinnest. If you fill this precious window with digital distraction, you kill the opportunity to have a conversation with yourself. You cannot hear the call of Ikigai through the noise of Facebook notifications or the chaos of market news. Setting a firm boundary, no phone, no computer for at least the first 60 minutes of your day, is not extremism. It is an act of defending the cathedral of the mind. Within that sacred space, you practice daily habits that nourish the soul, reading, writing a gratitude journal, or simply sitting in stillness. It is within this quiet that the meaning of your life has a chance to emerge. You begin to see what truly matters, what deserves priority, instead of being swept along by society's aimless current. At the same time, the consistency of waking up at a set time is your first exercise in resilience. As we mentioned earlier, leaving the warmth of the bed is the first victory of the day over cheap comfort. On a deeper level, this consistency sends a powerful message to your subconscious. I am someone who keeps my promises. When you maintain this rhythm, you build self-respect. Stoic philosophy does not place its faith in fleeting inspiration. It believes in the power of habit. You don't wait to feel morning motivation to get up early. You get up early to create your motivation. The combination of seeking Ikigai and practicing morning discipline creates a positive loop. Because you have a meaningful reason to live, Ikigai, you want to wake up early to pursue it. And because you wake up early in silence, free from distractions, you understand your Ikigai more clearly. This is the foundation of a truly free life. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. It is the ability to do what you have decided to do, despite the temptations of laziness and the distractions of technology. In short, the second principle invites us to reclaim control over our bias and our time. It demands that we be ruthless with what is trivial so we can be gentle with our purpose. It reminds us that Ikigai is not found on a phone screen, but in the silence of dawn. When you face yourself and ask, "Today, what will I contribute to this life?" That is how a modern practitioner of Stoicism begins the day, not as a slave to notifications, but as the master of their destiny. To truly understand the power of combining Ikigai with tech-free morning discipline, let's look at two completely opposite pictures of how a new day begins. The first picture, sadly, is the most common one. Imagine a young office worker in New York. He opens his eyes when the alarm rings for the third time. His arm reaches out on autopilot, searching for his phone on the nightstand like an addict reaching for a fix. Blue light flashes in the dark room. The first thing he sees is a news headline about an economic recession, followed by a glamorous vacation photo from an old friend, and finally a complaint email from a client sent at 2 a.m. Within just 5 minutes, his mind has been injected with anxiety, envy, and work pressure. He gets out of bed with the mindset of a loser, dragging himself to the bathroom, his head spinning with thoughts that aren't even his own. He has no Ikigai. He only has deadlines. He doesn't practice intentional living. He is living a reactive life. Now, erase that image and replace it with the story of Jiro Ono, the greatest sushi master in the world, who has devoted more than 80 years of his life to one thing, creating the perfect piece of sushi. Each of Jiro's days begins before sunrise, not because an alarm clock forces him up, but because his Ikigai wakes him. He doesn't lie in bed scrolling social media looking for morning motivation. His work itself, his desire to refine his craft compared to yesterday, is his endless source of drive. When Jiro wakes up, he goes through his daily habits with the precision of a Swiss watch. He does not let the world's distractions invade his mind. He goes to the fish market, studies every cut of flesh, feels the temperature of the rice. This repetition is not boring. On the contrary, it is a sacred ritual. In that silence and total focus, he finds the meaning of his existence. Jiro is living proof that waking up early is not a punishment, but a privilege to continue pursuing one's passion. He doesn't have to balance his life. He has already fused his life and his purpose into one. But you might say, "I'm not Jiro, I'm not a sushi master, I'm just an ordinary person trying to pay the bills." Then let's look at a more relatable example. How applying a Stoic morning routine can transform the reality of an ordinary person. Imagine a woman named Sarah. In the past, she always felt exhausted and lost. But after learning about Stoic philosophy, she decided to change. She began practicing the no phone first hour rule. The night before, she leaves her phone in the living room instead of the bedroom. The next morning, when she wakes up, she faces complete silence. No emails, no news, no notifications. In that peaceful space, she makes herself a cup of coffee. Instead of drinking it in a rush while scrolling the web, she sits by the window watching the sunlight filter through the leaves. This is when she reconnects with her Ikigai, her forgotten passion for writing, buried under years of busyness. She spends those 30 minutes writing, not to publish, but to nourish her soul. This small action, repeated every day, has rewired her brain. She realizes that self-discipline is not confinement, but freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of the smartphone. Freedom to be herself before becoming an employee, a mother, or a wife. This is like winding a vintage mechanical watch. You have to do it every day, gently and carefully. If you forget, the watch stops. If you do it too forcefully, it breaks. Morning, daily habits are the act of winding your mind. When you wake up early and give yourself that time, you are storing up reserve energy. So when you step out into the world, facing traffic, tough bosses, and life's unpredictability, you still maintain calm and remarkable resilience. You don't snap or fall apart easily because you've already been fully charged with meaning and peace. Another powerful metaphor for this principle is making your bed. Admiral William McRaven of the United States Navy once said, "If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed." This simple act takes less than 2 minutes, but it is the first completed task of the day. It sends a signal to your brain that you are a disciplined person. Even if you have the worst day, when you come home, you will see a neatly made bed, a small comfort you created for yourself. That is Stoic philosophy in action, focusing on doing the smallest things within your control as well as you can. So from Jiro Ono to Sira to the soldier making his bed, they all point to one truth. The way you start your morning shapes your entire life. When you combine Ikigai, the reason you wake up, with discipline, the way you act, you are no longer just getting through the day. You are truly living a life of intentional living. These habits do not guarantee that you will become rich or famous, but they guarantee something far more important. You will master your mornings, and through that, master yourself. After we've built a mental fortress and found our fuel in Ikigai, we arrive at the deepest layer of Stoic philosophy, a place that holds some of the most powerful psychological tools, yet also the most misunderstood. The third principle we need to explore sounds almost paradoxical to a modern mindset obsessed with positivity. It is the art of practicing negative visualization. In today's popular culture, we're often told to think only of good things, to visualize success, and trust that the law of attraction will bring it to us. But the ancient Stoics, like Seneca and Epictetus, chose a completely different path. They practiced what they called premeditatio malorum. the premeditation of evils. Negative visualization is not about drowning in pessimism or pathological anxiety. On the contrary, it is a vaccine for the soul. The core definition of this technique is simple. You deliberately imagine the worst-case scenarios that could happen in your life. The loss of loved ones, financial collapse, or even small daily setbacks like traffic jams and broken devices before they actually occur. Why would we torture ourselves like that? Because, as Seneca once said, fate falls heaviest on those who are least prepared. When you anticipate hardship, you strip it of its most dangerous weapon, surprise. The psychological mechanism behind negative visualization works by counteracting hedonic adaptation. Human beings quickly grow numb to what they already have. We crave a new car, but once we get it, the joy lasts only a few months before boredom sets in. By imagining that the car has been stolen or that we've lost the ability to walk, we suddenly awaken a deep appreciation for what is still here. It transforms fear of the future into gratitude for the present. This is the secret to maintaining peace and resilience in the face of constant change. This leads us directly to the next crucial supporting principle: practicing gratitude through a gratitude journal. Within Stoic philosophy, gratitude is not a cliché phrase or a shallow emotion. It is a disciplined esprit of perception. After practicing negative visualization, you realize that the simple fact you woke up this morning, still breathing, still under a roof, is not guaranteed. These are gifts the universe has loaned you and may reclaim at any time. Writing in a gratitude journal at the end of the day or integrating it into your morning routine acts as an emotional anchor. When you put pen to paper and name specific good things that happened, you're training your brain to scan for positive signals instead of obsessing only over threats and deficiencies. This is not just emotional therapy, it is neuroscience. You are literally rewiring your neural pathways toward a state of more stable happiness. A grateful person is not someone who has everything, but someone who treasures everything they have. Combined with intentional living, gratitude becomes a renewable energy source that helps you sleep better and wake up ready to contribute. Finally, even though the journey of self-development and inner cultivation is often described as a solitary path, Stoicism does not deny the role of community. This is where the concept of an accountability partner appears as a fourth core principle for sustaining discipline. We are usually much more willing to break promises to ourselves than to others. Having a companion, someone who shares your goal of waking up early, living more minimally, or studying philosophy, creates a form of positive pressure. In ancient Rome, philosophers would gather at the Stoa, the colonnade, to debate and encourage each other. Today, your accountability partner might be a close friend, a mentor, or even an online community. Their role is to serve as a mirror, helping you see your blind spots. When you get lazy, they remind you of self-discipline. When you lose your way, they remind you of your Ikigai. This connection turns a personal journey into a collective effort, dramatically increasing your chances of maintaining difficult daily habits over the long term. In summary, this set of advanced principles addresses the durability of your mindset. Negative visualization keeps you from being shocked by adversity. A gratitude journal keeps you from growing numb to happiness, and an accountability partner keeps you from feeling alone on the path of inner work. Together, they form a sturdy three-legged stool that lifts your mind above the trivial noise of everyday life and points it toward true purposeful living. We do not practice these things to escape reality, but to face reality with the clearest eyes and the bravest heart possible. To truly feel the transformative power of negative visualization, let's step into a hypothetical yet incredibly realistic situation in the modern corporate world. Imagine you're a project director preparing for the most important presentation of the year where you will be pitching to investors. An average person will spend the entire week replaying rosy scenarios, investors nodding in approval, thunderous applause, and contracts being signed. They pump their mind full of naive optimism. But then, on the big day, the projector suddenly breaks, and a tough investor throws out a piercing question about a financial gap you weren't prepared for. What happens? Panic takes over, your heart rate spikes, sweat pours down, and the presentation collapses. Because reality turned out brutally different from your expectations, and you were not ready for it. Now, look at someone who practices Stoicism in that same situation. A week before the presentation, they set aside quiet time to practice negative visualization. They close their eyes and ask, what's the worst that could happen? They imagine the projector breaking. They see themselves being grilled by investors. They even picture the project being flat out rejected. Here's the miracle. When they visualize these things, they don't sink into fear. They start planning. Because they're afraid the projector might fail, they print out hard copies of the slides for everyone. Because they're afraid of tough questions, they prepare detailed backup data and financial explanations. So, on the big day, when the projector actually does fail or doesn't, they remain completely calm. They smile, pull out the printed packets, and continue speaking with confidence. That composure, what we call resilience, doesn't come from luck. It comes from the fact that they have already lived through the disaster in their mind and conquered it before it ever happened. This is the pinnacle of intentional living, refusing to let unexpected circumstances steal your sense of control. Beyond work, this technique also has a deeply healing power in relationships. Think back to the last time you argued with your spouse or your parents over something trivial, like doing the dishes or taking out the trash. Now, apply the Stoic exercise. Imagine this is the last time you will ever see them. Picture a day when the chair they always sit in is empty, when their voice exists only in your memory. A chill runs down your spine, but right after that, a surge of love and tenderness rises in your chest. When you open your eyes and see them still there, all the irritation dissolves. Instead of arguing, you want to hug them, you want to listen. Negative visualization has rebooted your value system, helping you cherish the present instead of getting lost in petty demands. That is how you live a life that is full in every moment. Shifting to the power of the gratitude journal, let's look at the story of Oprah Winfrey, one of the most influential women in the world. Despite being busy running a billion-dollar media empire, she has maintained the daily habit of gratitude journaling for decades. She has shared that writing down 5 things she's grateful for each day completely changed the vibrational frequency of her life. On bad days, when everything seems to be working against her, the discipline of having to find 5 good things, even if it's just the cool breeze while walking the dog or a really good cup of tea, helps her shift her focus from what's missing to what's already abundant. This small act, done with consistency, becomes a wave shield, blocking the intrusion of depression and anxiety and helping her sustain her morning motivation for the next day. Finally, to illustrate the importance of an accountability partner, look at the culture of the Navy SEAL Special Forces. In the toughest training program in the world, they have a concept called the swim buddy. No one is allowed to go anywhere or do anything without their swim buddy. If one person fails, both are punished. If one person wants to quit, the other is responsible for pulling them back up. Applied to everyday life, building self-discipline to wake up early or exercise becomes many times easier if you have a swim buddy. Imagine a freezing winter morning with a warm blanket pulling you back to bed. The weak voice in your head whispers, "Just sleep a little longer, it's so cold today." If you're alone, you'll likely give in. But if you know your partner is waiting for you at the gym or is expecting your "I'm up" text at 5 a.m., the balance shifts. The embarrassment of breaking a promise to someone else is often stronger than breaking a promise to yourself. An accountability partner becomes your external conscience, helping you stay consistent until the habit becomes second nature. All of these examples, from the calm project director, to the loving child, to the hardened Special Forces soldier, paint a clear picture. Stoic philosophy is not a set of dry teachings on paper. It is a survival toolkit, an art of living that helps you turn everyday events into raw material for forging a great soul. When you combine the mental preparation of negative visualization, the appreciation cultivated by a gratitude journal, and the shared commitment of community, you are building an unshakable foundation for a truly purposeful living. We've walked a long way together through the profound ideas of Marcus Aurelius, discovered the fire of Ikigai, and equipped ourselves with powerful psychological weapons like negative visualization. But if knowledge stays only in the mind, it will forever remain dead knowledge. As the Stoic philosophers often said, don't talk about what a good person should be one. The biggest problem of modern people is not a lack of information, but the lack of a system of action to turn information into lived wisdom. So, how do we weave these ancient principles into a life that is busy, pressured, and full of digital temptations? This is where we need a detailed blueprint, a holistic strategy to reconstruct not just your mornings, but the entire rhythm of your life. We're going to build a closed-loop system, starting from the night before and extending all the way to the moment you step into the world with unshakable inner stability. Strategy 1. Your morning charts the night before. A common mistake most people make when trying to build a Stoic morning routine is focusing only on the moment of waking up. But the truth is, the quality of your morning is determined by the quality of your previous night. You cannot expect to wake up early, feeling energized if you stayed up until 2 a.m., binge watching shows, or mindlessly scrolling social media. To have a successful morning, you need to establish an evening routine based on preparation and letting go. First, apply a digital sunset. At least 1 hour before going to bed, disconnect from all electronic devices. Blue light and chaotic information are enemies of deep sleep and true recovery, and instead, use this time to prepare for the next day. Lay out your clothes, organize your work materials, and most importantly, write down the 3 most important tasks you need to complete. When you know exactly what you need to do tomorrow, you reduce the cognitive load on your brain in the morning, helping you start your day with clarity instead of confusion. Next, practice one of the most important spiritual exercises of Stoicism at the end of the day: reflection and gratitude. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, always spent his final minutes of the day asking himself, "Why, which of my flaws did I heal today? Which weakness did I resist? In what way did I become better?" Combine this with your gratitude journal. Writing down what you're grateful for not only helps you sleep better, it also reprograms your subconscious, so that when you open your eyes the next morning, the first thing you feel is abundance, not lack. Strategy 2. Win the battle of the bed. When dawn breaks, the first test of self-discipline appears: the alarm. This is the most sensitive moment. If you hit the snooze button, you start your day with a small failure, a surrender to instant comfort. To fix this, use a simple but extremely effective practical trick. Place your alarm or phone far from the bed so you're forced to get out from under the covers to turn it off. The moment your feet touch the floor, perform the first small act of intentional living. Make your bed. As Admiral William McRaven said, if you make your bed every morning, you've completed the first task of the day. It gives you a small sense of pride and encourages you to complete another task and then another. In the context of Stoic philosophy, making your bed is a symbolic act of bringing order to chaos. The outer world may be falling apart, but at least this small corner of yours is tidy and under your control. Strategy to guard your no-tech sanctuary. This is the most crucial step for protecting your mental health and nurturing your Ikigai. Commit absolutely to not touching your phone for at least the first 30 to 60 minutes of the day. We live in an attention economy where every app is designed to steal your focus. If you let the outside world invade your mind the second you wake up, you will spend the rest of the day in reaction mode, always responding, never creating. Instead, use this quiet and precious window for inner nourishing daily habits. Meditate for a few minutes to observe your breath and your thoughts. Read a few pages from the great minds, maybe Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, or another inspiring work. This is when you refuel your soul. You are sharpening your axe before entering the dense forest of work and responsibility. This stillness is the fertile soil in which your Ikigai can sprout and grow, helping you remember why you are striving in the first place. Strategy plus integrate Stoicism into the modern workplace. After completing your Stoic morning routine, you step out of the house. This is when theory collides with reality. Traffic jams, grumpy coworkers, complaining customers, they are all real-time tests of your resilience. Apply the dichotomy of control right at your desk when a project runs into problems. Instead of panicking or blaming others, ask yourself, what part of this is mine? What part is not? You cannot control the market's reaction, but you can control the quality of your product and the attitude with which you serve. When facing a rude email, remember the negative visualization you practiced. I knew this could happen. It can't hurt me unless I let it. In relationships and on social media, use Stoic calm to create the pause. Before leaving a heated comment or snapping back at your partner, pause for 5 seconds. That brief silence is where freedom lives. It allows reason and virtue to step in instead of pure impulse. You'll find that by living a life of purposeful living, you become more forgiving, less judgmental, and more deeply connected with the people around you. You no longer get swept up in pointless drama. You reserve your energy for what genuinely creates value. Strategy. Start small and stay consistent. An important piece of advice for anyone beginning this journey: don't try to change everything at once. Stoicism and the search for Ikigai are a marathon, not a sprint. If you try to wake up at 4 a.m., take cold showers, meditate for an hour, and read 50 pages of a book on day 1, you'll burn out and quit by day 3. Dummy 3. Start with baby steps. This week, focus only on not using your phone for the first 15 minutes after waking up. Next week, add the habit of writing down 3 things you're grateful for. The week after that, try waking up 15 minutes earlier. Sustainable transformation comes from the accumulation of small but consistent actions. Consistency matters more than intensity. A 20-minute morning routine that you practice daily for 10 years is far more powerful than a 3-hour routine you maintain for only 1 week. Remember, the goal is not to become a cold, emotionless productivity machine. The goal is to become a whole human being, someone who can feel deep joy in simple things and still stand firm in the midst of storms. Morning motivation should not be fueled by the fear of falling behind, but by love for the life you are consciously creating. Putting it all together. A day in the life of someone who lives with intention. To close this section, let's imagine your ideal day after you've mastered these principles. You wake up at dawn, not because an alarm is screaming at you, but because your body has synced with a natural rhythm and your mind is excited for a new day. You smile, stretch, and get out of bed decisively. You make your bed, drink a warm glass of water, and sit in silence. No phone, no news, just you and your thoughts. You spend a few minutes practicing negative visualization, anticipating the challenges of the day and preparing yourself to welcome them. You write a few lines in your journal, setting today's priorities based on your Ikigai. Then you move your body gently or read a bit. When you start working, you work with deep focus, free from distraction. When problems arise, you handle them calmly. When joy comes, you savor it without clinging. In the evening, you unplug. You spend quality time with your family or with yourself. You review your day with gratitude, forgive your shortcomings, and fall asleep with a peaceful heart. This is not a distant life reserved only for saints. It is a life within your reach. It begins with your decision tonight and your actions tomorrow morning. By combining the ancient wisdom of Stoic philosophy with modern strategies, you are not just optimizing productivity, you are turning your life into an art. You are shifting from a state of random existence to a state of intentional living. And that is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Of course, drawing a perfect roadmap on paper is always much easier than living it out in a real life full of variables. We have to be honest. Applying a Stoic morning routine is not some magic pill that instantly solves all your problems. There will be days when your body is exhausted, your kids are sick, or laziness rises so strongly that every idea about self-discipline gets completely overpowered. On top of that, some critics argue that obsessing over productivity and strict morning discipline can lead to rigidity, turning people into emotionless machines, stripping away spontaneity and the natural joy of life. There's also the perspective that wake up early simply isn't for everyone, especially those whose biology, chronotype, leans toward being night owls. Forcing yourself to get up early when your body is not built for it can backfire, causing sleep deprivation and reduced alertness, the exact opposite of the resilience we're aiming for. However, what's crucial to remember is this. True Stoic philosophy does not glorify blind asceticism or extreme perfectionism. Real Stoicism always walks hand in hand with flexibility and self-compassion. The goal is not to never fall, but to decide how you get back up after you stumble. If you oversleep one day, don't torture yourself with guilt. See it as an objective data point, something that happened, nothing more. Accept it and step back into your rhythm the next day. The combination of Ikigai and discipline should never become a prison that locks away your freedom. It should be the sturdy frame that allows true freedom to grow. A sustainable, intentional living lifestyle is one that knows how to balance the drive to rise higher with a gentle acceptance of human limitations. Through our journey of exploration today, we've stepped deep into the minds of great thinkers and discovered that the secret to an extraordinary life doesn't lie in luxurious external conditions, but in the quiet moments at the very beginning of each day. Building a strict morning routine combined with Ikigai is not just a strategy to work more efficiently. It is a sacred ritual through which you reclaim sovereignty over your own soul. We've seen that self-discipline is not a form of punishment, but the only path that leads to true freedom. And that resilience is not something you're born with, but the result of training your daily habits with perseverance. Remember, purposeful living is not a finish line you'll magically cross on some perfect day in the future. It is a journey that unfolds right here, right now. In every tiny decision you make, every time you choose to put your phone down and pick up a book instead, every time you choose to wake up early instead of sleeping in, and every time you choose gratitude over complaint, you are laying one more solid brick in your inner fortress. Don't wait until everything is perfect to begin. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Start with imperfect steps. Go towards course, but filled with intentional living, starting tonight. How will you choose to begin tomorrow? Will you let the current of life push you around again, or will you stand up, grab the wheel, and steer the ship of your destiny with the calm of a philosopher and the passion of an artisan? The choice rests entirely in your hands. And that is the highest form of power, one that no one can ever take from you. If you feel your mind has become clearer and you've found a sense of peace through these reflections, affirm your commitment to change by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel right now. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell. That's the simplest way to make sure you never miss any of the deep psychological lessons to come, lessons that will help you stay grounded in an increasingly chaotic world. To close this video, I want to leave you with one final reminder from Marcus Aurelius, a line that has lit the way for millions of people over thousands of years, and I hope it ignites something in you as well. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Don't waste another moment arguing about what it means to be a good person. Become that person, starting from this very moment.